now started and all participants are in listen-only mode. And then, hello everyone and welcome to our webinar. I am Terry Roberts with DMAI, Destination Marketing Association International. We are the trade association for convention and visitors bureaus. And we are so excited to have you join us for our November webinar, Meeting Spaces Reimagined, for optimal learning, networking, and collaborating. So if that image of those chairs lined up theater style in that very stark room is not what you're after, then you have certainly today come to the right place. And I am very excited to introduce our panelists, but before I do, I will just say good morning to Chris Wessel. Chris is with ePro Direct, and ePro is our monthly sponsor. Chris will join us at the end of the webinar just to say hello and tell us a little bit about ePro. For a housekeeping note, please, hi Chris. Hey, and for housekeeping, please just know that Elaine Rothquist and Kate Skidmore with our DMAI staff are looking at our question board. So we hope, I think, once you hear what Mark and John are going to talk about, you're going to have a lot of questions. So as you're thinking of them or commenting, please use your question box in your GoToMeeting dashboard, put them in, and then at the end of our webinar, we'll turn to questions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest today, Mark Greiner, who's the Senior VP, Business Concept Design and Chief Experience Officer at Steelcase Inc. And Mark is responsible for really translating all of the research that Steelcase does, turning those trends and insights into their future product development. And they are a very innovative company, and I think you're just going to be thrilled to understand more about Mark's research. He is joined by his partner in crime, John, and John is new to Steelcase. He joined Steelcase and looks forward to really being a solutions-oriented leader in this meetings industry, and we know he will deliver on that because John has such a great hotel and CBB background that I know will serve him well as he relates to planners and their needs for meeting experiences in this new role. So John and Mark, welcome. Thank you for taking your time and most importantly for sharing your experience with us. So here we go. This is our webinar roadmap for today. John and Mark are going to talk to you about how experiences arrive at this very interesting intersection of people, process, and place. And then they're going to talk to you about how your meeting participants select spaces that match their intended use and how you can really get much more proactive in optimizing their meeting options to hit these objectives. And Mark will share with you 5 research insights, and then John's going to try to tie that loop to show you how to translate these research insights into design principles. So with that being said, I'd love to turn it over to you, Mark and John, to get started telling us about space that really matters.
Thank you, Terry. This is Mark. It is an honor to be joining you and your online audience on this webinar. And with my colleague John, share our perspective on the critical role, those listening as well as your entire membership, the critical role they have in advancing the design and staging of memorable experiences for their respective destinations. As you mentioned, I've had many roles here at Steelcase. I've had leadership roles in IT, dealer development, communications, marketing, and research. And for the past 5 years, I've been in the position of Chief Experience Officer for Steelcase. But it was when I had the responsibility for our global research function where my passion for experiences and the value-generating power of experience design took hold. John, why don't you give them a bit of your background before I jump into the topic itself?
Oh, great. Thanks, Mark, and welcome, everyone. And I want to give our special thanks to Terry, actually, and the team at DMAI for inviting us today and also just to put a spotlight on the physical space at events. So I'm excited to be here. I'm not, as Terry mentioned, I'm not new to the industry. My role is new. I've been at Steelcase now for about 4 months. So I'm not new, and I've had different roles across hotel, CBB, and actually event technology. And as much as I love technology, and it seems to get so much attention today, I really feel like the next big area for disruption is really where the magic happens. And that's inside this physical space at meetings and conferences. And actually adding one more layer is actually from the point of view of the attendee, and how the attendee interacts with the space. So I'm fortunate to be here today in my new role. I'm really excited to move the event industry forward, and I believe that space really does matter. That's actually the reason I joined the team here at Steelcase. So with that, Mark, take it away.
Thanks, John. Simply stated, our goal in this webinar is to reinforce for those listening now or later the inherent truth in what we have highlighted on this very first slide. Space matters. It is our firm conviction that your desire to achieve greater interest and elevated satisfaction for those you welcome to your destination is directly correlated to the value participants and organizers perceive in the experiences staged on their behalf. And space is a huge contributing factor to that experience.
Well, Mark, I think that specifically the planners on the line would love to really understand the focus of your research, and I'm really excited for you to begin to share that with them. So why don't you begin talking about the foundation of those research domains?
Our research efforts are focused in the 3 domains you see on the screen: people, process, and place. Let me quickly describe each, starting with people at the top. Our research is centered in the study of human behavior, answering questions like what prompts an individual's actions, how do they interact with the environment and with each other. Next, the process domain. Here we analyze the activities individuals and groups are engaged in. What takes place when teams collaborate? What tools do they need to complete a task? What interrupts flow? Questions like that. And then the place domain, the physical environment, where we explore the many components of the space: the architecture, the furniture, the lighting, colors, line of sight, sound, asking what helps or hinders effectiveness, and what changes in the space lead to improved performance. I cannot lie, Steelcase makes good products, but it is the understanding and the insights that come from our research which truly set us apart. And it is my hope that in sharing this research today, it can do the same for you, set you apart. People, process, and place, the who, what, and where, compose the 3 primary components of any experience, and for purposes of today's discussion, the work experience. When the intersection of people, process, and place, as highlighted in the center of this diagram, is designed as an integrated set, the experience is optimized. If I may, I would like to further substantiate the importance of the place bubble by sharing a milestone of sorts from our research. Over the years, in partnership with a group of neuroscientists on the West Coast, we have concluded that the more design-full, the more sensory-rich the space experience, the more intense, the more exacting the memory of the experience will be. Many of you might have assumed this from your own experiences. But here the neuroscientists are saying that it has scientific basis with evidence that human memory is coded based on a space-based context. In other words, we recall events because of the space an event or activity took place in. Convinced that space design matters more than we ever imagined, we shifted our development efforts to look beyond individual products to applications or distinctive settings, which would enhance the memory and thus the performance of those involved in various types of work.
So when I think about Steelcase and your work, I'm wondering if the folks that are joining us think about work, taking place in the office, right? So how does this relate to meetings and events?
Well, it's definitely true, Terry, that in our past, our primary focus has been on furniture applications for office work. Our research led us to exploring other types of spaces where work takes place and discovered that many additional opportunities to apply our knowledge of work. Healthcare and education, for example, are 2 industries where we have developed innovative product and application solutions. Then around 2006, as Wi-Fi technology freed all of us from being tethered to a desk, we saw the emergence of work being done away from the office, which naturally led us to considering the work that takes place when large groups come together at a program, a conference, or an event, which is the world your membership deals in every day. And as we conducted observational research in this new category, we concluded these types of spaces, like the office, could be transformed by the careful hand of a designed experience.
Well, and I know you have a lot of research, and can you really, is there a way that you can kind of summarize? We're going to go into these 5 researches, but is there a way that you can kind of summarize how it relates to the topic of meetings and events for the audience?
Yes, Terry. In broad terms, when it comes to space, we can summarize look at it as our overarching conclusions into 2 fundamental belief statements, both of which are specific to the design and staging of any space, and potentially most evident to the design and staging of a conference space. The first is individuals select spaces which best fit their preferred objectives. This isn't rocket science. It merely states the reality that people will do whatever they need to do to find a space that works for them. And then, if they can, go even further to adjust that space to match their personal preferences. Just think back to the criteria any of us have used to select the last hotel you or I have stayed in and the type of room at that hotel, and then all the subtle adjustments we make once in the room.
So let's kind of then move on and talk about how this is actualized and some examples.
Okay, before we go to, we're going to actually share 5 different photos, and before we go to those, I really want to state on this slide here the corollary to the first belief. So, as I said in the first belief, people select that which best fits their preferences. And you'll see this all the time. When people come into a facility, they will seek out a particular place that matches the particular activity or their preference in terms of their environment. And this process of fit to purpose and the effort an individual or a group has to expend to find a workable space drives to a major extent the participant's perception, either positive or negative, of the venue itself. And it is this perception of each participant which should be of paramount importance. It's not what you or I think, but how the participant perceives their time was valued. The attendee's perception of the overall value of the event space experience will not only influence their willingness to engage and participate, but their retention of what was shared and their subsequent excitement in retelling their experience with others. And then the second belief here is also true, the corollary of the first, in that spaces can shape individual behaviors to optimize desired objectives. If one is intentional about staging the types of environments in the space that more appropriately support the varied needs of participants, participants will more easily be able to select the right and better space solution.
So I know you've pulled up some specific examples of how this is, executed in an actual conference. Yes, we have. So if you go to the next slide, Terry, we're going to, as I said, show you 5 different photos. Was taken at a recent TED conference, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. And Steelcase certainly knows well, as we have designed and staged their annual conference for some 20 years. Each photo we're going to share with you reflects a different type of space, responding to a different user need. While I'm not about to apologize for each photo having Steelcase furniture in it, please know the photo was selected because it best depicted the concept being shared and not because it is the only way to solve for this need. Based on the requirements and budget, other products and other space plans can be equally effective. For each photo, I'll be sharing the research insight, which represents our shorthand research conclusion, a summary of the observed reality, the state of the reality we saw. John will then share what we call the resulting design principles.
which is, as a result of synthesis, is the basic criteria by which to assess or evaluate the many potential solutions we could have. So in this first picture here, the research insight is labeled change of address. It's a simple way of describing that people, by their nature, seek different experiences when attending a conference or event, based on their personal needs, expectations, or even desires. And since no two people are exactly alike, their preferences are unique to each individual. Even something as simple as posture varies widely. As you see in this photo, some like to stand, some like to sit. Others, the more youthful types, tend to sprawl out, as seen in this first picture near the front. In addition, one's preferences could vary by day of week or time of day, or by the specific activity taking place, whether responding to a text message, returning a confidential phone call, reviewing one's notes, or socializing with others. I think you would agree, John, each requires a different type of solution.
Exactly, and which is why really the best way to respond to this design statement is to offer a menu of choices. It's also intentionally designed for a specific purpose. This one example is what we call a simulcast zone at TED. It's a concept today that makes up a large part of the actual design of the conference and the brief. But I want to point out that it's interesting. This is not, the room is sold out, and this is an overflow lounge. Typically, that's what goes on in our industry is I need a space. I sold out the general session. But think about this as a way to provide more formal, informal options that actually lead to greater engagement. This could be just the way people want to accomplish this type of work or interaction with the content. So providing a mix of different styles of tables and chairs that a facility may have access to, you can accomplish the same plan.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I look at this and it does remind me of something Jim Gilmore pointed out in our webinar a couple of months ago, and he was just saying, like, why don't planners adapt for people that have bad backs and want to stand, and like there's no place for them to put their things, and just as something as simple as putting some high boys at the back, opens that up.
Exactly. I mean, it looks on the surface like this isn't very well planned, but actually that's a great idea. Terry, is provide stools, provide other writing surfaces for a laptop or tablet, sofas. There's just it really is about that personal choice and accommodating it.
Absolutely. So obviously, number one, having options, different ways for people to sit and partake. So what about the interaction element that's so critical for planners? So they're offering a change of address, but what about this idea of interaction?
As seen here in our second photo, our insight dealing with interaction or interacting is labeled cooking together, which, as we all know, is the reason many attend a conference, to engage in dialogue and interact with other attendees. But facilitating this interaction requires people to not only be relaxed and comfortable, but also to be in relative close proximity to each other, to feel one can keep the conversation personal by not having to talk in a loud voice. In addition, cooking together is not just spoken conversation. Sometimes one needs to sketch an idea or scribble a note to share with another, which makes the adjacent availability of a horizontal surface something as simple as notepads arranged around the space and writing instruments is always a welcomed addition. This surface also provides a place to sit a cup of coffee, or it's certainly more stable than one's lap and less likely to spill if you sit it on the floor. What does this tell us about the design of these spaces, John?
Well, the goal here is what we call a stage for conversations. So it's really comfortably positioning people, and you'll notice here it's shoulder to shoulder or knee to knee. Oftentimes, a seat that swivels to focus one's attention in another direction. If it's so static, sometimes you're limited to your range of motion and also range of connectivity. It never hurts to have these spaces situated in what we call in-between spaces. And you'll notice this is a great example. It's in a lobby or foyer with the nice windows. But I think that there's often unused and sometimes awkward spaces in pre-function areas that can actually provide opportunities for these planned and unplanned meetings and making connections. Individuals love these types of spaces. It allows them to build the social capital advanced learning, understanding, and forging new relationships.
Yeah, I see hotels. I just got back from Dallas, and this looks exactly like the lobby and the foyer of the meeting space that I was in, and yet the planner didn't really incorporate any of this into the design of their meeting. It just sat there empty all day. So now we've given them some options. We've thought about getting them interacting one-on-one. What about getting them, more into their own individual downtime, which I know you have to allow for that, right?
Absolutely have to allow for that, Terry. The ability for the individual participant to get away is crucial. And the reason for our next research insight, which we've labeled Me, Myself, and Mine. In many respects, an event or a conference participant is a nomad. At least it feels that way for the better part of the day, from the time they leave their hotel room or their car if it is a local event, and the time they return late in the day. They traverse the conference venue or event space carrying all this stuff with them, together with additional items they might collect along the way. They carry it in a backpack, a briefcase, lots of different things they carry it in. While they spend the better part of their day participating in meetings and activities and training across a very packed agenda, sometimes they just want to get some me time, as seen here in our third photo.
Which is why designing for what we call taking a break for individual focus is so important. I have my own name for this. I call it getting away without going away, because so many times, I attend a conference and I'm forced to go back to my hotel room. Maybe it's just to finish something, some work, but I really want to jump back into the conference. So this allows you to do that. It also, it could be a place to complete some time-sensitive work or related tasks, making a call, reviewing an email. In any other case, the same design principle really does apply here. It's create places for individual focus. And when they do, it's nice that somebody gave some thought to their situation. So the attendees will respond really well to this because you're really identifying one of their needs. And also, in addition to this, we're maybe having some handy outlet to charge their phones. This photo shows a solution that provides some degree of visual and sound isolation from others. So you'll see, even though we're showcasing this is an award-winning product called the Brody, the same thing can be accomplished just by blocking or finding areas that block your line of sight that allows a little bit of that semi-private area for this focused work.
Yeah, I think this is cool. I really love this attention to detail. And, I was thinking when I was looking at this, like a lot of planners put the speaker ready room into their design, right? That's something that's been done. But, this could translate to having an attendee workroom, right? So that somebody's going to have to go and do some work, and giving them a little private space to do that, like you said, so that they don't have to leave your meeting and then maybe get distracted and not come back. So that's right. Great. So
yeah, I love the reference to the speaker ready room. That's great.
Yeah, it's a nice time. So we also know that you need to give small groups. So they're learning in a big group atmosphere, and then small groups or impact teams want to get together to do a little brainstorming. How do you design for that?
In response to your question, Terry, the next insight shifts from individual to group support. It's called Amplifiers Electrify. Like some of the other names we've given to our research insights, the name we've assigned this insight may not mean that much to some, maybe all of you. But I'll give you a little behind-the-scene kind of understanding of how we label insights. We look to have the name reflect the essence of the research, the aha moment for us, reflecting on what we have observed in users. So in this case, Amplifiers Electrify refers to the requirement of a space when small groups come together to collaborate that we refer to in research as creating a shared mind. It's kind of a creative dance when people come together, and the resolution of that creative dance is a shared mind. This generally takes the interaction deeper than most social discussions, as it often involves a group of individuals coming together in a co-creative way, where content in words, drawings, or pictures are at the center of the conversation. Such an activity requires displaying content in a way that all can see and share. It's amplified to enrich the conversation. And when the conversation is amplified, it sparks or electrifies a deeper thought, thus the title, Amplifiers Electrify. It facilitates everyone commenting on and or contributing to what is shared. This picture shows a very innovative and more expensive way to solve for this. But as has been said a couple times now, there are less costly ways to respond to this. But keep in mind the insight that you want to have shared review of content in some way to allow the conversation to create this shared mind of collaboration.
And
so John,
yeah,
John. So talk about how the planners that are listening could actually incorporate this need for sharing into their meeting design.
Sure. I think that the key here is just allowing for small groups of attendees to collaborate and, keep that conversation going that may have started at the general session or one of the breakout rooms. So I think number one is just identify space that you can set aside for this activity to take place. The setting, in this example, of course, it's a simple interface to share the content on one laptop. But you can do this in other ways using flip charts, markers, have an analog solution to this need. Using any high tabletop actually increases participation. You'll be surprised that in this example, others could just really pull up and stand around this conversation too. So, you can actually get more people involved in these spaces if you design them correctly.
Yeah, and so now we can have a speaker-ready room. We could have this individual work room, and I don't know, maybe now somebody puts together a shared mind room, right? A space to get together to talk about what you're learning. I think it's really cool, and it really drives home what we were trying to capture in just getting away from that space that has those chairs lined up and feels so predictable. So I know that the last photo you plan to share is really interesting, and it's called Newspaper Meets Wallpaper. What does that mean in terms of your research?
This final photo and research insight deals with scale differences, which must be addressed in large group settings, which could be a breakout room, a ballroom, or a more formal theater. In such settings, personal content, as in newspaper, so it's very personal when one's reading a newspaper, whether it's online or in print. But in a large group setting, it must be viewed or viewable by many, which we're representing by wallpaper. So we're saying, in effect, the content moves from the laptop-based slides of the presenter to a room-based screens for all to view and see. I'm sure your online audience, like you, Terry, John, and myself, have all found ourselves at one time or another in a large group space where it was difficult, if not impossible, to clearly see the speaker and their presentation.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't think of a conference really that hasn't occurred at one time or another, and it's pretty frustrating. So what's the solution?
Well, what we've seen through observing many large group gatherings is that the frustration people feel is generally the result of poor design. This is due either to having some participants seated either too far from or at too great an angle to the screen on which the speaker's presentation is being displayed. It can also result from an individual who can clearly see the screen content, the slides, let's say, but not the speaker. And what is missing is a close-up of the speaker themselves. It's not projected at scale in parallel with the content, and participants want that. They want to see the slide, and they want to see the facial expression of the one speaking. They want to get a close-up of the speaker's kind of face and upper torso. It's basically a geometry problem. At the end of the day, it's a geometry problem and a production opportunity. Not overly difficult to solve, but often compromised for various reasons. But as John will explain in a minute, the basic guideline or intent of the design principle can be applied to any size space, where content is being shared. This particular photo is, it was saying, less than expected or spectacular spaces. This is one of them. This is a pop-up stick-built theater. There's a movie online. You can see how this thing is erected at the TED conference. But it's in the Vancouver Convention Center, and it was first put up 2 years ago in the largest ballroom of the Vancouver Convention Center because they did not have a theater. And it signaled a complete reconceptualization of the theater experience, including a variety of seating and setting options, which goes along with our first research insight, and a highly curved and raked arrangement. Each level goes up rather quickly here. But what it allows them, every participant to do is clearly see the stage, the circled red stage, and to clearly see the slides. It's visually stunning, and from a performance perspective, really quite amazing.
Yeah, and when I look at this slide, and I'm sure the meeting planning audience looking at this slide says, looks amazing, looks expensive. So, John, tell me how someone could, go about achieving this in maybe a little bit less costly way.
Sure, and this is really just to prove the point that the design principles optimize views and vistas, and that really is creating an environment, regardless of budget, where the attendee can clearly see the speaker and see the content, as well as seeing not just the speaker but the others in the room. We think that that's important too, and that's sort of just by designing it through sort of this arc that you see. Those are simple things that can be done. So in addition to the mega scale screens, you can add additional large screens on the sides above the audience, the speaker and their presentation. So, and then in addition, just keeping an eye out for and designing a variety of seating options, including more intimate settings, possibly sofas, rugs, coffee tables, and maybe even arrangements including risers on varying depths. The wrapped central stage in a 180-degree semicircle is one of the tricks for creating those vistas and views. But as Mark mentioned, you don't have to hold an event as big as TED to achieve the similar results. And it doesn't have to be as costly as what's been designed here. So, it's really just looking at design principle and being true to all the other design principles that were shared. It can be applied to any space, long and narrow, square, round, inside, outside, from ballrooms to meeting rooms, stage or no stage. Location really doesn't matter. Any space can be optimized for the experience of the participants.
That's cool. So I also think that the planners on the call today can really put some creative pressure on their convention service professionals that work in these spaces, that know how, if they've learned these design principles and the research behind them, then they can put the impetus on the convention service sales professionals to help them deliver on this. So, gentlemen, we're running at the end of our time, so I'm just going to ask you quickly to say just a word or two about how you can make this all come together.
Okay, well, it really comes together in the function of design that you alluded to. This is the opportunity before your entire membership to use the power of design informed by research and science, to create a vastly different experience, a more memorable event, and deliver significantly better results. If done well, one can transform a simple space, an empty room, into a destination, a place where people want to be. And if you go to the last slide, Terry, this really brings it full circle back to the critical importance of space. And when designed based on the science of human behavior, it definitely matters. So whether your members' specific goals, needs, or objectives include learning, sharing, networking, or any of the ings you see on this slide, a thoughtful, intentional design of the space component will definitely matter in the overall perceived value. As Tom Peters, the author and speaker, would say, design an experience where the participant's response moves from "it was good" to "I want more," from interesting to elated, from satisfied to stunned. Do that, and you will have created impassioned ambassadors for the destination you represent.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. I think your research is very compelling. We have some questions about that we'll get to. And I also think that just armed with these 5 design principles, you could sit down and really pull your meeting apart and make some simple adjustments. So we're going to take Q&A, so go ahead to your question board and put your questions for either John or Mark in. On behalf of the Convention and Visitors Bureaus across the United States, we'd like to, and Canada, we would like to invite you to reach out to them, connect with them so that they can put you in touch with the best hotels, venues, and space partners in their destination. Many of you will have questions about your CMP credit. So you have earned a half-an-hour credit today for Domain G, which is meeting and event design. And check your spam because we know that it oftentimes ends up there, but early next week before the holiday, you're going to see your certificate come into your inbox. We hope you'll keep in touch with us. We've put up all of our web portals there, and I'd just like to invite Chris Wessel real quickly from ePro Direct to say hello to you, tell you how you can keep in touch with ePro Solutions. And while we're doing this, I'm going to have Elaine collect the questions from you all. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Terry, thank you so much again. And once again, we are honored to be a host for these incredible webinars. And Mark and John, great job. You know, I've been in the industry for a little bit longer than I'd like to admit, but close to 30 years now, and in all capacities, and especially in the hotel world. And just never really realized even the science behind the setting of a room. I know that, you know, obviously, planners want to make a room feel more engaging and comfortable, but I never realized there was such a deep level of science behind it. So interesting stuff. Great job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
As Terry mentioned, my name is Chris Wessel. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called ePro Direct. We just celebrated our 15-year anniversary as a marketing and technology solutions company or firm servicing the meeting and convention segments of the hospitality industry. We really have two primary functions that we focus on. We try to keep things simple, but we offer one called Direct Connect, which for the past 15 years we've been helping meeting suppliers grow their group business by marketing their content and messages to our audience of about 80,000 qualified meeting planner subscribers that we have. And then on the other side of that, we help conference organizers market their events to their audiences to help them grow their event attendance. About 6 years ago, we started developing event apps, and that's called Inspire Mobile. They're full-featured, custom native event apps on all major platforms, and we kind of tailor them very specific to our clients' needs, and we do that all at a very affordable price. We've been working diligently, we continue to work diligently on making that process for a meeting planner very, very, very simple. We understand that an event app is an additional responsibility in many cases for meeting planners, so we really put a big focus on trying to make that process very simple from very beginning to very end. So if anyone would like to learn more about what we do and to see if there is an opportunity for us to be able to help you in any way, you can feel free to go to our website, which is eprodirect.com, or you can email me directly at chris.wessel@eprodirect.com. Thanks so much, guys. Again, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. And for those of you who might be interested in learning a little bit more about Steelcase or listening to the question portion of our event, we'll go back to John and Mark now. So Elaine or Kate, any specific questions?
Terry, I have a question from someone asking if they have any suggestions for the budget conscious.
Sure. I mean, I think we tried to hit on several of those points, but I think one of the options is to really partner with your facility or who's hosting the event and see. You may be surprised what they may have in inventory that's a little bit different to mix up some of these settings. And I think.
Let me add one thing to that. This is Mark. That what we have seen in some venues who have had the opportunity to experience a different type of design to the actual conference or event is that the venue then invests in a collection of furniture that shows various types of settings that they use in kind of a teaser mode to others considering their venue. They have it out all the time in their venue and in the pre-function space or something like that, and so that when others come to consider that venue, they say, oh, can you do this type of thing? So it gets their interest, and then they can potentially hook them in.
And at a bare minimum, I mean, I think just having high tops versus low seating, that's something that most facilities have. So I think at the most, or even tables at the back of the room where people can stand, is something that it really doesn't cost anything, and it just accommodates a different posture.
There's a lot of ergonomic science behind how energy goes up the more elevated you are, whether you're seated on a stool, you're standing, or you're perching. You have to expend less energy, and thus you have more energy available to what you're discussing or talking about than if you're seated. When you sit down, everything kind of goes to your rear, and kind of it sucks a lot of the energy you have out of an individual.
You know, it's interesting just in how many people I know that have gone to standing desks, right? Because, you know, it's just hard to sit through an 8-hour day at work. And so, you know, we can carry that. That's a great example of carrying, you know, a trend in work in the office into work in the meeting environment. Hey, Elaine, I know that Miroslava had a question.
Yes. You know, they just want to know where they can find more information about this research. Where would they go to get more?
So, Mark, is there a white paper that has been written? Is there any sort of more detailed information about your research anywhere available?
Yes, there is. Not all our research fills, you know, miles of walls here in deep within the kind of behind the curtain side of Steelcase, but much of our research is also posted online on our site at Steelcase.com. So if you go to Steelcase.com, one of the tabs has to do with knowledge or research or something like that. You click on that and you would see published papers, white papers, articles, that type of thing.
Very cool. I think that there was also a question about are there some best practices? Are there any companies, you showed TED obviously, but are there other companies, associations, groups that you see doing really innovative things that people might want to track or follow?
Sure. I mean, I think that the best example, you know, we're a new service offering for the event industry, and as our customers are coming on board, we have a lot of examples to share. And I think it's, you know, but it really boils down to the organizations that they're putting the attention on the space and they see the value in the space. And I think that's where this industry is putting a little bit of a different shift, is looking at the space more intently and through the design. So there's companies out there that we've worked with, like Dell EMC, you know, associations, corporate. We have actually a case study on our website from National Investment Council that I would direct people to get a real glimpse of, you know, of a real true setting and how it interacts. But that's on our website that's posted here.
A very quick story that talks about how this even occurred, this organizing for this new service offering, is that of all the people that attend TED, there's like 6,000 people that come to the conference every year, and that the space, all 3 floors are staged with these various spaces. They come up to people and they say, you know, I'm responsible for this event. I organize this event. I'm trying to do this in our city. Can somebody help us with this? And that's really why we developed this service, because it's not about doing everything. It's not about making it more expensive as much as being able to bring this capability to an event or to a venue. And then, and John could go into all the details about the customers that we've done this for, but the only thing I want to share is that it truly is transformative after someone attends an event that has been designed and staged to be memorable compared to what they used to have. And once the organizer sees the power of that, all future things they organize are done that way. It's kind of like redefining what an event or conference should be like. Today, people are so busy, you have to earn their right to have them take time to come to your event. And if it is not compelling enough, they have other things to do rather than come to your event.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add that it's also, you know, it can, what a lot of our customers are doing is they're starting, you know, with a few spaces. There could be some very key spaces, and don't get overwhelmed with saying, you know, I have to start with doing my whole meeting like this. And I think that's, you know, it's the point is get started. Start trying it. Start trying different areas, and then and then grow and build onto that. That's really where we're seeing the success.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think whenever anyone talks about innovation of any type, it becomes sort of a all or nothing. Like they get so overwhelmed that they just think, I can't do this all, so they do nothing. So
Exactly.
I'd like to point out that Louise Olson said she walked away with a couple great ideas. So Louise, thank you for that. And Aldous said that she really felt that it was really interesting for her to get to know the power that planners could have in engaging and making decisions, like proactive decisions about the space. So thank you for that. Amy wants to know, and John, maybe you could take this as your last question in closing, is there a specific Steelcase webinar or website where if someone really does want to talk to you about renting furniture or putting this together, how could they go about that?
Sure, and I want to make it really clear, yeah, that this is a full service. We're not, I'm real careful, I wouldn't use the word rental company. It's really, we're much more of an experienced design consultant. And so what we do is we use all our research and insights, and so we take it from, like we talked about, from workplaces, universities. We have an education division here as well. And then we layer that into the design work and applying the experience design with the quality premium furniture that works sort of hand in hand to create this, what we call a powerful, purposeful event. So we really partner, as a consultant we really start off by understanding the goals and objectives, and then we create the custom experiences to really inspire the engagement, the communication, and this collaboration that you've seen. So we take it to another degree from a consultative standpoint, but we also do the full service from design setup and tear down, and but we do the full suite of services from beginning to end.
That's great. Elise, thank you. Elise mentioned that she liked the photographs, that was really helpful to her to visualize some options or some potentials. Renee has asked if she'd like to share this webinar, and will we be sending a recording? And yes, you'll get a link to the recording along with your CMP certificate, last but not least. And then Frances, thank you. She said that she really liked, Francis could be a gentleman too, so he or she said that they really like the reminder to look at that pre-function space and how can they encourage it and use it to build on casual meetings and on meetings that are happening outside the more formal meeting. So
right, and Terry, I just want to make one last, I forgot to mention, we do have on our website that's posted here, we do have a form that people can fill out an inquiry if they want more detailed information. And then we're also doing what we call placemaking events. We're starting to do them in some strategic spots around the country. So I'll make sure that those that are interested, that we'll add you to our list. So when we come to your city, we can invite you to and share more.
That's very cool. So on behalf of DMAI and our Convention and Visitors Bureau's partners who look forward to serving you and all the destinations in which you meet, we thank you for your time today, and we wish everyone a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. We are certainly grateful for your continued support of our webinar program. So thank you all, and have a really great day and a wonderful holiday ahead.